Hello and welcome to our brand new show, Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Alison Lagrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top headlines. Ukraine's military says its forces hit a Russian oil depot used by Moscow's Air Force, the latest in a series of escalating cross-border strikes. Hundreds of Israeli protesters block roads in Tel Aviv, calling for the immediate release of hostages as Gaza ceasefire talks make little progress. France urges the European Commission to protect its member states with greatest firmness against interference in politics, particularly from Elon Musk. The United States accuses the Sudanese paramilitary Rapid Support Forces of a genocide and imposes sanctions on its leader, Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo. And Indonesia upholds a ban on iPhone 16 sales despite Apple's $1 billion pledge to invest in the country after a negotiation deadlock, citing the company's failure to meet domestic market requirements. Hello and welcome. Now, 5 years after the coronavirus pandemic, there are concerns simmering over a new infection. It is the HMPV, or the human metapneumovirus. An outbreak of the infection in northern China has prompted some alarm, but experts say that HMPV is not COVID. In recent weeks, videos on social media have shown hospitals in northern China overrun with masked people and arising cases of respiratory illnesses. Beijing has acknowledged an uptick in cases of the flu-like HMPV, especially among children, but has called it a seasonal spike. So far, apart from China, 8 cases have been reported in India. According to reports, Malaysia, Kazakhstan, the United Kingdom and the United States have also reported a rise in HMPV cases in recent months. In India, the first 2 cases of the HMPV infection were reported in Bengaluru, in the state of Karnataka, both among children with no travel history. The 3rd case was reported from the western state of Gujarat. The 4th and 5th were reported in the southern state of Tamil Nadu. Following which, 2 more tested positive for the infection in Maharashtra's Nagpur and 1 in Mumbai. Now, it is pertinent to note that although these countries are battling an HMPV outbreak, the discovery of the virus is not new. It was first identified in the year 2001 by Dutch scholars. The Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention says that the virus existed for at least 60 years. Experts say it is a common virus that affects the respiratory system. But is it dangerous? What are the symptoms? And when should you seek medical care? We'll answer all of these important questions for you. First, the symptoms. Those infected with the HMPV could suffer from a cold, wheezing, high fever, sore throat, nasal congestion, dehydration, and shortness of breath or difficulty in breathing. In severe cases, the HMPV infection could cause bronchitis and pneumonia. The infection poses a significant risk to the vulnerable groups, including children, the elderly, pregnant women, and those with chronic health concerns, and those with weakened immune systems. So how long does the infection last? The symptoms of the disease are typically appearing in 3 to 10 days after infection. The United States CDC says that the estimated incubation period is 3 to 6 days. The duration of the illness depends on the severity of the infection, but is similar to other respiratory infections caused by viruses. If you have been in contact with someone diagnosed with HMPV during an outbreak, you must get tested. You should also see a doctor if you are experiencing severe respiratory symptoms, such as difficulty in breathing or persistent fever, especially if you belong to a high-risk group. Is the infection contagious? How does HMPV spread? Well, like other COVID, the HMPV is also mainly transmitted through droplets or aerosols produced by coughing and sneezing. It can also spread through close contact with an infected person or by touching contaminated objects or surfaces and then touching the mouth, nose, or eyes. Preventing the spread of HMPV would require you to bring in basic lifestyle and hygiene changes, most of which we adopted during the coronavirus pandemic. Wear a mask when going to crowded places and avoid poorly ventilated places. Now, this may bring back memories of the pandemic days, but this is still essential. You must also wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds and avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth with unwashed hands. You must avoid close contact with people who are sick. Those with cold-like symptoms should cover their mouth and nose when coughing and sneezing. Now, scientific disinfection can also effectively reduce the chances of HMPV infection. For now, there is no vaccine to prevent one from catching the HMPV infection. There is no specific antiviral therapy either. Now, one question that is looming over everyone's mind is, are we going back to the pandemic? Will HMPV cause another lockdown? Can it cause an epidemic? HMPV infection can cause outbreaks, but medical experts and governments say there is no need to worry. In India, the government has reassured people that there is no cause for alarm. However, it has asked state governments and medical teams to step up surveillance and for people to remain vigilant. To address more concerns and to allay fears and bust myths that are doing the rounds on social media, we are being joined by Dr. Vivek Nanagia, who is an internationally renowned interventional pulmonologist. He is the Vice Chairman and the head of the Institute of Respiratory Critical Care at Max Healthcare. Welcome to Firstpost, Doctor.
Thank you.
Now, Doctor, what is HMPV and how does it differ from other respiratory viruses like coronavirus in terms of symptoms and transmission?
So HMPV is the virus which we've known about since 2001, as you rightly said, human metapneumovirus. And we see such patients, cases of this viral infection every year, practically around this time of the year, during winters and extends up till the springs. So as far as the symptoms are concerned, there is no difference between the symptoms of those caused by HMPV or by corona or any other respiratory virus. They usually are the same: cold, cough, sore throat, fever, running nose. And if it goes into the lungs, it would start causing breathlessness, chest pain, and even blood in the sputum sometimes. So clinically, based on symptoms, it isn't possible to differentiate between the different viruses, whether this is COVID or influenza or respiratory syncytial virus, which also becomes quite common at this time of the year, or it is HMPV. The symptomatology is just the same.
Right. And what basic precautions can individuals and families take to protect themselves from HMPV, especially during the peak respiratory virus seasons?
So again, the same standard precaution that you would follow for COVID, that you would follow for influenza, you would also need to follow for this HMPV virus. So the most important thing that I tell all my patients is that one is that don't need to panic. You just need to be vigilant and cautious, but not to be in a state of panic. Whenever you develop cough, cold, fever, best is to isolate yourself for the first 3 to 4 days. Stay indoors. Do not interact with other people so that you're not transmitting it to others. Next thing is that only if your symptoms continue to worsen, the fever persists, breathlessness sets in, oxygen levels drop down, that is when you should be contacting your doctor, not until then. Till then, only take things like paracetamol, keep yourself well hydrated, maybe vitamin C you could take, and just good rest is what is needed.
Right.
But
and doctor, is there... Carry on, sorry.
Yeah. So the other things that you can do is, follow the cough etiquette. That whenever you're coughing, you should be coughing either into a tissue or into a handkerchief or into the upper part of your arm so that the secretion is not spread all over. And then the usual standard precautions of maintaining distance, avoiding to go to overcrowded places, strict hand hygiene to be followed, and move away from the concept of shaking hands to say hello. I think it's time to go back to our usual Indian way of greeting, that is the namaste. So I think those are the simple precautions that
Namaste.
you need to follow, and wear a mask. When you talk of mask, then it has to be an N95 mask, and it can't be anything less than that.
Right. And is there any ongoing research or development for an HMPV vaccine? And how soon might we see it becoming available to the public?
So science is always ever evolving, as we know that. So there are vaccines which are in the stage of development. They have completed the experimental stage, the animal stages, and are currently in human trials. There's an inactivated vaccine, there's a live attenuated vaccine, which is under trial, which has shown safety and efficacy. But it's difficult to predict when will they be out in the market for commercial use or for public use. But definitely the research is going on, and I think now with this HMPV scare, the vaccines may just be expedited, and we may just get them earlier than late.
Right. Doctor, thank you very much for being with us on Spotlight. We appreciate your expertise and advice.
Thank you.
Moving on, hundreds of protesters are on the streets in the Gilgit-Baltistan area administered by Pakistan. Now, these protests against prolonged power cuts have been on since the 3rd of January. Now, these protests over the domestic issues in the picturesque valley of Hunza have started to severely hit trade between Pakistan and China. This is because the protesters have blocked a key highway that connects the two neighbors. The demonstrators have been staging a sit-in, blocking a section of the 1,300-kilometer-long Karakum Highway, which is a part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or the CPEC. Now, the CPEC is an integral part of the Belt and Road Initiative, which is a landmark project of the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Through this, China aims to facilitate smooth connectivity and to boost trade by connecting the Xinjiang Autonomous Region to the Gwadar and Karachi in Pakistan. The protesters have even blocked freight trucks passing through the route. According to reports, around 700 trucks with export and import goods are stuck on the highway.
Over 80,000 people of Hunza are craving a single bulb to light. Hunza is at a very important defense and strategic location. It's a very important border. It is the gate of CPEC. It's a gateway of Pakistan-China connectivity. At this place, people are hardly getting power for 1 hour and 20 minutes during the daytime. People have been out protesting on the street for the last 4 days.
The region of Gilgit-Baltistan has been witnessing prolonged power outages for years. People in this mountainous, snow-covered region in the north of Pakistan live without electricity for more than 20 hours a day. The bone-chilling temperatures of -15 degrees Celsius add to their woes. The lack of energy supply has forced people in Gilgit-Baltistan to rely on the use of wood, as gas and fuel-operated generators are expensive.
This is a nerve-breaking power outage in Hunza. We are getting power only 30 to 40 minutes in 24 hours. It is very cold here. The temperature drops to -15 at night. Students don't have internet due to the power outage. There are issues in lighting, heating, and cooking that people are facing here.
The protesters are demanding power projects in the region to boost supplies and running thermal generators. But the Pakistani authorities have failed to fulfill these demands. People in the region accuse the government of turning a deaf ear to their concerns. Pakistan has been grappling with an energy supply crisis. Power cuts, locally known as load shedding, are a widespread problem in the fuel-deprived country. The pressure on the electricity grid increases during peak winter and summer seasons, and this leads to a further increase in power outages. In fact, cities across Pakistan have been facing similar protests over power crisis. increased load shedding, and the rising cost of electricity. Even the energy prices in the country have more than doubled since 2021. Now, the mounting power crisis is a part of a larger financial turmoil that Pakistan has been facing. The country is struggling to comply with conditions to raise revenue that have been set by the International Monetary Fund for a bailout package, which Islamabad desperately needs to restore economic stability as it continues to battle political uncertainty. And from Gilgit-Baltistan, let's move to Taiwan. The self-ruled island is facing an unprecedented number of cyber attacks. China is accused of doubling down its tech warfare against Taiwan. The East Asian island was hit by a daily average of 2.4 million cyber attacks from China last year. That is what the island's National Security Bureau said this week. This amounts to as many as 1,600 cyber attacks a minute, or at least 27 cyber attacks every second. But that's just the tip of the cyber attack challenge that Taiwan faces from China. Taipei said that most of the cyber attacks were conducted by Chinese military's cyberspace force. Beijing is accused of combining cyber attacks with military intimidation. Taiwan said that Beijing's cyber attacks in 2024 were often accompanied by its gray zone warfare, a term that Taipei uses to describe China's military intimidation around Taiwan Strait. Telecommunication, transportation, and defense supply chains were the top targets of Chinese cyber attacks in 2024. Beijing's cyber warfare even targeted islands' emergency, rescue, and hospital services. Government departments, the finance sector, and think tanks were also among the worst hit entities in these cyber attacks. The island's telecommunications sector was the worst hit by Beijing's tech warfare. The sector reported a whopping 650% increase in cyber attacks as compared to 2023. Transportation sector and defense supply chains were the next worst hit survivors, and these critical sectors marked 70% and 57% increase in Chinese cyber attacks in 2024. Now, Taiwan said that while targeting its government departments, Beijing set up cyber ambushes to steal confidential government information. The report by Taiwan's National Security Bureau added that to steal the data from Taiwan's defense supply chain, China deployed techniques such as phishing emails, baits to download malicious software, and advanced persistent threats. China also stands accused of reaping profits through hack and leak cybercrime techniques. Taiwan said that through relentless cyber attacks, the Chinese military's cyber force hacks through the personal data of Taiwanese people and sells it out on the dark web and on hacker forums. Taiwan is not the first to accuse China of such unprecedented cyber attacks. In February of 2024, the Netherlands accused China of placing malware in a Dutch military network. In March of 2024, the US accused China of targeting members of the European Parliament. And in May, Britain said that Chinese hackers hit the country's Ministry of Defense that exposed sensitive information. In July, Germany accused China of directing a serious cyber attack against the country's cartography office, which had conducted precise mapping of the entire country. In October, reports said that China-backed hackers conducted cyber attacks against Thailand's government institutions. And in the same month, Chinese hackers were accused of hacking cell phones used by members of Donald Trump's presidential campaign. As Beijing expands its cyber attacks, not just in Taiwan but around the world, the governments across the world have urged their nationals to prioritize cybersecurity and to remain vigilant against cyber threats posed by China. And for our last story, we present the undisputed champion of the grabbing headlines, Elon Musk. With yet another social media post, Musk has again managed to get people talking, and this time it is about his favorite topic, population decline. The tech billionaire Elon Musk has once again raised concerns over global population decline. He describes it as one of the greatest threats to humanity. Musk recently retweeted a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, by Tesla owners Silicon Valley. They shared a graph illustrating the projected population changes from 2018 to 2100 in the next century. For key nations, the post included a quote from Musk himself. The graph, originally published in a 2020 University of Washington report, paints a grim picture of the future for some of the world's most populous nations. India, currently home to over 1.4 billion people, is projected to see its population shrink to just under 1.1 billion by the year 2100, a loss of approximately 400 million. Meanwhile, neighboring China's population is forecast to plummet by even more dramatic numbers. It will see a staggering decline of over 50%, from 1.5 billion to 731.9 million.
I think there are subtle differences between the two countries, which is making this trend amplify itself. First of all, are religious differences. In India, certain religions have prohibitions against, say, contraception, or they encourage having children. That is one factor. Also, China happens to be far richer than India, and this is one big factor which has affected population growth rates. And also you have a situation where women's employment or educational levels in China is far higher than what you see in India. And that's also another factor which is highly correlated with fertility rates and population growth.
If these projections hold, Nigeria, with an estimated population of just above 790 million, will replace China as the world's second most populous country by the end of the century. Population decline is a growing concern for many nations. It is driven by falling fertility rates, immigration, and aging demographics. The replacement fertility rate required to maintain a stable population is around 2 children per woman. However, countries like England and Wales are far below this threshold, with the average dropping to a record low of 1.44 in 2023. This is according to the Office for National Statistics. Now, globally, fertility rates have halved over the last 6 decades, falling from 5.3 children per woman in 1963 to just 2.3 today. The implications are vast. For countries like India and China, population decline could lead to shrinking workforces, economic stagnation, and increased dependency ratios.
I think the government should reduce the pressure of raising children and give us more support. They should invest more in education resources. Nowadays, many people do not want to have children if they don't have the resources to provide a good education for them.
Yet, not all nations are equally affected. The United States is projected to remain the world's 4th largest country by 2100, bolstered by positive net migration. Similarly, Canada and Australia are expected to maintain semi-stable populations through immigration. In contrast, the fast-growing African nations, such as the Democratic Republic of Congo and Ethiopia, are predicted to surpass Indonesia and Pakistan in population size around the turn of the century.
Many of the countries, such as China, Japan, Singapore, Taiwan, they have been trying to financial incentives for having children. But we are also seeing that they have not been as effective as what we have seen in certain other countries like Germany and all, which have made childcare much more affordable, much more proximity, as in they are much nearer to the workforce, especially the female workforce, and also providing very innovative schemes, such as allowing freezing of eggs for single women even. Such kind of innovative policies will have to be tried out.
So what's next? Elon Musk's warning highlights the urgency of addressing the challenges posed by declining populations, with nations like India and China facing steep demographic shifts. Policymakers worldwide must act to mitigate the economic and social impacts of these trends, whether through policies encouraging higher birth rates, better support for aging populations, or migration reforms. Now that's all we have on Firstpost Spotlight today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost.